living. This is the Mindful Living podcast where we explore stories of resilience, healing, and personal growth. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and today, in this episode, we are diving deep into the role of self forgiveness in healing with trauma with Deborah Moffat. She is an inspiring author, speaker, and also she's the host of the Healing Version podcast. So, everyone, get ready for an honest, eye opening conversation. So, with that, Deborah, welcome to the show, and it is such an honor to have you with us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am so honored to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Deborah, before we dive deep into the topic, I would love to know, our listeners would love to know how what was your journey like? What brought you into the world of understanding, exploring, healing, and then self-forgiveness and healing with trauma? I mean, if you are okay with sharing that.
Yes, absolutely. Um, as a child, I had a very unstable living situation,
Mm,
being moved from different homes and different schools, and not really being put in a space where I can be planted in and grow as a plant. I think of like plant a seed and then you
mm,
grew from that. I didn't have that opportunity. It was like I was a weed and I was pulled up from every place that we would go. So growing up as a teenager, I became very rebellious. Didn't quite understand, where that anger and frustration was coming from. And as an adult, I started to do some inner work instead of blaming the people around me and the situations around me. I started to take a look within to figure out what was happening with me that caused me to have such anger and be such a rebellious child. And what I found is that I had a lot of abandonment, trust issues, and
mm,
I needed to figure out why. Why was the childhood thing, and then also, where do I go from here? How do I start healing from this so
mm,
that I can be a better adult? And not only that, I have children that I need to be better for. So, um, that's when I started my healing journey, and which took me into my healing podcast, which is kind of like my journal where I express a lot of things within my journey.
mm, mm, mm. Thank you for sharing your journey, Deborah. And you know the um, most endearing thing, the most connecting thing, which kind of struck a chord with me, is in spite of all that pent up anger, frustration, you decided to do the inner work, not blame anyone or the circumstances, or in fact yourself, because sometimes we get into that rabbit hole of blaming everyone, everything around us, and as well as blaming ourselves, whether for a decision that we took, which kind of changed our life or got us into that situation or that upbringing. But what I believe, Deborah, is there is no point of blaming because it's not going to take you anywhere. It's just going to you deeper into that frustration and anger. It's going to destroy you. It is. So what you did, it's really really inspiring, really empowering, and I'm really happy that you're able to share that gift with all of us out there. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so Deborah, what exactly was the first step when you started with your inner work?
So the first step I would say would be journaling. I started writing down my feelings and those moments when I was angry. I started writing down like why. Why do I feel angry? Who made me angry? Um, and at that point in the beginning, I didn't really know like what to do about it. Um, so
Mhm.
I did turn to therapy. I hired a therapist and being in therapy taught me a lot about where to place a lot of those emotions and how to overcome a lot of those emotions.
Hmm. That makes sense. That makes sense. And yeah, journaling is such a beautiful way to start with. And I also, and because I have learned this through, all the beautiful conversations I have had the gift of, having with guests like you, Deborah, that gratitude is so, so important. It's so necessary, whether um, it's your life, it's your work, or in any kind of situation, because we have been given the second chance to write things up, to forgive ourselves, to forgive others, and just go on, move on with it while embracing all the negative emotions. I know it's difficult. It's easier said than done, but I strongly believe in having that gratitude, whether it's through praying or through loving or through journaling as well.
Mhm.
So let's talk about self forgiveness, Deborah. It's very foundational. So, what does self forgiveness actually mean in the context of trauma healing? And how is it different from excusing harmful behavior?
So, self forgiveness is when you take a look at those things that you may find fault in when it comes to yourself. So, you look at those things and you figure out why they happen because there's a why to everything. And then you start to love yourself beyond those things and be able to look in the mirror and say, in spite of what happened, I
Mhm.
wasn't happy with what I did or what happened to me or, how I created whatever situation it was for myself, but I forgive myself. I feel like affirmation is really big when it comes to self-forgiving, being able to affirm yourself and knowing that everything happens for a reason, but then it's also okay that these things have happened. You just have to, love yourself enough to like move past them. And then the second part of your question was, can you repeat that about
Yeah,
the last
sure.
part? Sorry.
Yes. How is it different from excusing harmful behavior?
So excusing harmful behavior, I feel like is that comes in with a lack of accountability when harmful behavior is excused or anything has an excuse to it that somewhere somebody's not taking accountability. Whereas when it's self forgiveness, you're taking accountability for your actions and forgiving yourself. So it's a difference between accountability and no accountability.
Makes sense. That makes sense. And Deborah, in your own journey, um, and through your work with others, what has been the biggest barrier to self forgiveness that keeps people stuck in cycles of shame or self blame?
I think it has a lot to do with one, people not forgiving themselves
Hmm.
and the overthinking and continuing to go back on those things. Because a lot of times when things happen, you just have to let it go. Just let it go, move past it, stop giving life to it, stop talking about it, stop thinking about it. Um, Maybe write in a journal about it, talk to a therapist about it. But a lot of that just has to do with just not being able to let go. So just have to figure out how to let things go.
Mm, I agree. Okay, and also there is a component of generational trauma in your work, and you emphasize on breaking that. So does self forgiveness play a part into this, as in like changing family dynamics, or maybe breaking the cycles of dysfunction? I mean, can it help, let's say your healing journey, can it help others in your family or in your generation, like outward?
Absolutely. I feel like, for me personally, the fact that I'm able to forgive myself, for things has helped me to be able to forgive others and to be able to move past a lot of the things that I was offended by that were the actions of other people. So definitely self-forgiveness plays a huge role in bridging the gap in the generational traumas. I strongly feel like you have to be able to forgive yourself in order to even deal with other people. Can you imagine trying to deal with family trauma and drama and you're not happy with yourself? Because now you're covering up a scar that, um that needs to be dealt with, that needs to heal. So this journey of healing definitely starts with yourself.
Absolutely. And I think if we don't, if we are not able to work on this, I think it creates distance. It creates a lot of misunderstanding, and it really pains, because then you feel um, lonely, you feel disconnected. But of course, uh, I think it definitely starts with us. It starts with us, and though it's going to take some time, it's going to take a lot of work, but then there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. There is definitely light there. Just keep pushing, keep going.
Great. Great. But then I also want to bring in a bit of contradiction here, Deborah, just for the listeners. Sometimes some critics would argue that push for self forgiveness, where you actually kind of didn't have your fault. I mean, it was not your fault. It can actually slow down justice or accountability. Especially when harm has been caused to others or by others. So, how do you respond to that particular perspective, that tension?
So I feel like it's a case by case situation. If you listen to my podcast, I'm a huge advocate for walking away from people and things that don't serve you. So if it's a situation where somebody did harm to you
Mhm.
and there's no coming back from it, or there's no changing or no accountability on that person's part, I
Mhm.
I'm big about walking away from those things because if you don't, those people, those things keep you stagnant. They keep you in situations way longer than you're supposed to be. So I act accordingly.
Mm. And as I mentioned about your podcast, Deborah, so if you would like to tell us a little bit about, um, the conversations you're having on your podcast, and any particular moment or conversation that kind of hit you differently, and it was kind of quite a learning one for you. I think the listeners would love to know.
So my podcast, the healing version, it is a self development podcast. It's a podcast of transparency. It is
Mm.
a realistic podcast, and I think almost every episode, something comes from me that I'm just like, wow, I didn't even think of that when I was writing my notes. But I do believe in God and the Most High, and I feel like that I am being used and it is coming through my episodes. So I would say one of the biggest things that I am learning is is self control and how to handle people because it's still a learning thing for me now. I'm s- it's probably one of the biggest challenges because a lot of times I want to get on my podcast and I want to go off, especially right now because I'm doing a series on generational or sorry, not generational, but dysfunctional families, and I'm talking a lot about why families are the way they are and how disconnected it is. And a lot of that has to do with miscommunication. And I have a lot of emotions, feelings towards the disconnect with families. So definitely being able to control my tongue and um, be respectful and just deliver the message that needs to be said that a lot of people are thinking, but they won't say.
Wow. Yeah, I know it's such an interesting journey because as a podcaster myself, sometimes it really surprises me that I used to think like this before, but I think I was wrong. I mean, some of the myths has been busted, some of the
Mhm.
misconceptions have been. So
Yeah.
yeah, every conversation, whether it's your own journey or you know talking about journey of the guests, we learn, we absorb, and yeah, it's really such an empowering phase for me right now, Deborah. I'll be very honest.
Trust
Okay,
me.
you were saying something. I sorry to cut you off. Yeah,
No, I was saying, trust me, I understand. I definitely understand that.
beautiful. So, for listeners, Deborah, before we conclude this, for listeners who feel like they have tried everything or they don't even want to start and they can't seem to still forgive themselves, what's your honest advice? I mean, are there any situations where full forgiveness isn't possible or it's even necessary?
I feel like full forgiveness is possible. I think that it just has to do with mindset. I'm a big advocate for you have what you say. So if you yourself don't believe that you can reach full forgiveness, you'll probably never reach full forgiveness. So if a person feels like they can't go on this journey or they don't want to go on this journey or there's a stumbling block, it's probably you. So I would say until you change your mindset and you decide, yes, I want to heal. I forgive myself for whatever happened or didn't happen and go from there. It's all a mindset. It's all in your head.
Lovely. That was raw and bold, and yes, I couldn't agree more with you, Deborah. And if our listeners would like to connect with you, I believe you have an upcoming book as well. So if they would like to connect with you, listen to your podcast, what's the best way to do that?
The healing version is on all major platforms, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We are on YouTube. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We have a website coming out this summer, so be on the lookout for that. Um, yeah, however you listen to podcasts, look up the healing version. We're there.
Beautiful. I'll make sure to have all the details in there. And Deborah, thank you so much for this raw conversation, heartfelt conversation, and for sharing your journey, your vulnerability, and your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And I wish you well with your podcast. And I appreciate you for having me today.
Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
all the listeners on the Mindful Living, I hope today's talk resonated with you. So don't forget to check out Deborah's podcast and refer to the show notes along with this episode. And until next time, I encourage all of you, I invite all of you to stay mindful, keep growing, and love yourself and others as well. Thank you.